and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority, committed to caring for you. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And hello, K-Man, and happy Friday, and welcome to another episode of Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon, and yes, welcome. And it is Friday, correct?
All day today.
All day.
Indeed. Happy Friday to you. I trust you had a good day.
I had an awesome day, and it was one of those another great and productive day, Mr. Harris.
We like the sound of that. We like it when you have busy but productive days.
Yeah, nothing better.
Feel like you've accomplished something.
I was just gonna say nothing better than when you can look back and say, "I did that. Look at that."
That's right. That's right. That's right. Absolutely. It is a sense of fulfillment and/or achievement, and we recognize Absolutely. It doesn't always happen that way. So it's nice
good
when it
happens.
One of my favorite lines from one of my all-time greatest series, the original A-Team. I love it when a plan comes together.
I remember that. Yeah. hey, there's a group of people listening that goes, "What are you talking about, A-Team?" Go search it up on YouTube.
But then, thank God, there's an entirely other group of people who know exactly what I was saying, even before I even said it. They were on the same page with
exactly.
Yeah, once upon a time, there were good TV shows on in the evenings, and, well, I'm talking about that era.
Well, looking back at things like that, right? Hey, listen, how did these topics come up between you and I? Remember when you had Dukes of Hazzard, and then the lady, what's her name, Daisy?
Daisy.
Like that pair of shorts was like a special type of thing back then.
She started, well, not even back then, she started the trend to define a type of jeans, those shorts, called Daisy Dukes. When you take a nice pair of jeans and you cut it just to the right height,
yeah.
And of course you have the right anatomical features to show it off,
right,
then you are wearing Daisy Dukes.
Which is not necessarily a requirement, but it does help.
Oh, listen. Let's not get me started.
Sometimes you got things dropping below the Daisy Dukes.
All shapes and sizes, tall, short, skinny, not so skinny. You look good. You look good, ladies. That's all we're trying to say. You look good.
We're not going to complain.
Not going to complain. But this sexual harassment law out there, dude, that always frightens me when we start, maybe we'll take a walk down this type of road.
You know how I feel about that. That one saying you can't even ask for the number. It's taking romance out of things.
Taking romance.
What
right
exactly is supposed to happen?
Exactly. Anyway, happy Friday, K-Man.
Are you in Facebook?
What?
Are you in Facebook? Yeah, I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out what's supposed to happen now.
I'm gonna tell you.
Okay, go ahead. Tell me.
Good. All right. As I was saying, happy Friday and welcome to another. Today will be open mic once again here in studios. No guest planned for today, but definitely want to mark it in your calendar. Coming up on Monday, we look forward to hosting the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, the Honorable Kenneth Bryan. He will be our guest in studios to talk, provide that expert guest opinion as it relates to the airport redevelopment projects, plural, as well as the shifting and or changing landscape that makes up the leadership of the Cayman Islands following the elections, and, of course, his thoughts on where he particularly might end up. So you definitely want to be a part of that conversation.
Well, just could get another view on the political landscape. A lot of things have changed. We've seen things settling down now after the election. Be good to get another point of view.
No, quite right.
And we're hoping to have other members, as we have mentioned here on the program before. We've invited members of the opposition as well as members of the government.
That's right.
So we look forward to that happening.
No, I agree with you completely. So for this Friday open mic, but on Monday, the Honorable Kenneth Bryan will be our guest in studios. And as Ellio stated, we have other plans for the rest of the week, and we'll update you as they become available. 745-2626 is the number in studios, or you can reach out to us on our WhatsApp number, 2562. And from there, you can either leave us a WhatsApp audio note or a traditional WhatsApp text message. We're broadcasting, of course, live on your radio dial, 103.1 FM, but also simulcasting live over YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook with the search words Straight Talk Radio Show. We are also streaming live, continuing on the ACT Cruise Tourism page as well. And again, keywords there are ACT. Yesterday, we didn't have the opportunity to talk about or to start with our good news. We kind of just jumped into the
I wonder how that happened.
Well, you know, sometimes these things just happen. The wind blows, takes you in a certain direction. Your sales are up. Why fight it? Right?
Yeah, just go with it. I think I might have been the one to start off, right, and ruin the good news. Was it?
I think you did.
I think I did.
You
Right?
And I wasn't going to mention it, but I wore my green shirt for you yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
And you didn't even notice.
No, I
Didn't
did.
even notice.
I did notice, but I forgot to mention it. Just for recap, I wore a nice dark Christmas green shirt in here. And Mr. Harris was talking about how I was wearing the shirt, the color of money.
I did.
I don't know. I felt somewhat marginalized, castigated, pointed at, as the guy with a shirt like money. And then he mentioned that I don't have any green in my closet.
That's right. That's right.
And then he comes in here with a
right.
green shirt yesterday.
So
tell us.
The story behind that was, yes, you are 100% correct in terms of
You're hiding your money, is what you're telling.
context of our previous conversation. And I did state that I didn't think I owned a green shirt outside, of course, my green 25-plus-year-old University of Miami hoodie. Which is more of a dark green or a forest green, like the shirt you had on the other day.
And then that's when you touched on the orange.
Yeah, and that's what I said. I don't believe outside of that sweater, I didn't have a thing green. And that's odd because I do have
But you were wrong.
a variety of colors. And yes, so as I was going through my clothing the other day, I saw something sticking out from the bottom and it looked green to me. And I said, by Jove, I was wrong. I do have a green shirt. So
I do have the shirt, the color of money.
I do. So I had to wear it, and I was wearing it just for you. And again, didn't notice.
Didn't
say
catch my
anything.
eye.
Didn't catch your eye
You
at all.
caught-
I was gutted.
You caught my eye, but we were so, entrenched
Yes. Yeah.
into our discussion that I neglected to
That's
mention
all right.
it.
As we stated before, the wind blew us in a certain direction,
We just went with it.
and we just went with it. We didn't fight it. But yes, we like to start off each and every day with a bit of good news before we get into the otherwise nitty-gritty of our conversation. And whilst we continue to wait on the National Coalition for Caymanian Government to release their strategic policy statement that we expect to occur sometime before the end of the year, and whilst we have and will continue to perhaps speculate based on their existing manifestos, what are some of the areas of commonality? It's always nice when they do the heavy lifting for us. This week in the media, the Honorable Catherine Ebanks-Wilkes, Minister of Health, Environment, and Sustainability, began formal briefings with her leadership team as the newly established ministry moves decisively to deliver on national priorities and enhance the well-being of Caymanians and those that call Cayman home. The ministry said in a press release or an article that appeared specifically at this time in the Caymanian Times that the ministry is already progressing a number of key initiatives, including the development of a national clinical standards for healthcare practitioners, updates to major pieces of health legislation, implementation of findings from the STEPS 2023 National Health Survey, enhancing the management of the marine ecosystem alongside programs and initiatives to enhance energy efficiency and climate resiliency. These efforts reflect a growing understanding that health outcomes are shaped not only by services, but also by the broader social, economic, and environmental conditions in which people live. So that's a bit of a mouthful, but it does say a lot.
We need that in English.
We do need it in English. Well, I'll tell you what it says to me in English is two things. Number one, they certainly have set their cap high. They have to reach to really get it. And I think that is a good start. When you're making your goals, whether they be New Year's resolutions
Aim
or
for the stars.
Yeah, well, they aim for the stars, but set your goals to a point where you really have to make an effort to obtain them, I think is a good rule of thumb. And by all means, certainly the Ministry of Health, Environment, Sustainability have done so. What worries me, though, in English is it going to be verbose? These are subjects that require a great deal of explanation and a great deal of talk time. So are we going to be, as our honorable Speaker of the House once said, will birds be flying or will the lips just be flapping? So there's that. It also speaks to me about expensive. That's the one word that jumps off the page at me in terms of these expensive. And the expensive is important because
the one word that was clear in the whole thing was expensive.
This is going to cost us some money. These plans somehow are going to cost us some money. And that's important because when you look at the Q1 financials and the looming potential deficit position that the country may still find itself in at the end of this fiscal year, the expenditure on health in particular, now largely not the incoming minister's fault, certainly a reflection of what came before, but she's already out there on a bit of a tightrope spending-wise, and, I just hope it doesn't go off the rails.
I want everyone to know that, my chuckling, et cetera, has nothing to do specifically about the minister, right? It is to do with that word salad. Like if you just listen to all the wording, wasn't it Mr. Clifford that used to say the glittering generalities? It's like, and then we got a text one time in here that it went.
So what did they actually say there?
Yeah, we had a text up in here one time, right? That was the similar one as well. I just wanted to say that the supercalifragilistic espialidocious and that you start reading and listen. Say, hold on, what is that? I know every word is in English.
What was that? The glittering what?
The glittering generalities.
The glittering
generalities. Yeah. It's like. I know every word I read is in English because I just read it.
I just don't know what it means.
It's somehow a matter of weaving it all together.
Yes, therein lies the challenge.
Therein lies the challenge, my friend.
Well, there's an education in politics, young Padawan. That is what politician is. Sums it up in a phrase or less.
That's true. That's how, they to be political correct.
Glittering generality.
I had a look at the young lady and I realized immediately that she was horizontally challenged. Now, this raised a few concerns in my regard, but he was like, what? Excuse me?
What did you say?
Are you trying to say she's fat? What are you trying to tell me?
Or she's tall, one of the two.
Horizontally challenged.
Or,
vertically challenged would be,
short, yes.
Yeah,
right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so anyway, the Ministry of Health, Environment, and Sustainability does, on the positive end, have a number of lofty and ambitious goals set for themselves at their meeting. Maybe as the course of time moves along, we can both understand what the glittering generalities may mean.
Yeah, I need to see that in front of me.
Physical terms, and also, of course, what some of these efforts may end up costing us, because, you've always got to keep one eye on the policy and the intention, but the other side on the financial books, how much you're spending and, what you can save for a rainy day. Or, again, you can perhaps choose your policies that deliver the best outcomes and therefore can justify the expenditure a bit better. Again, something we haven't always succeeded with health, but I digress. It is good news. Also, staying with the same ministry, the ministry also announced the formal appointment of the 9 members of the National Conservation Council at a cabinet meeting. Now, whilst you and I did touch on this in the past, but obviously we heard through the grapevine who those members might be, and I can honestly report back to you what we said then is no different than the formal outcome. But because it was made formal, I felt as if we had an obligation to include it in our good news category. The membership of the council consists of 13 voting members, of which 4 are ex officio statutory members, representing the government departments of Agriculture, Environment, and Planning. The Department of the Environment also provides a non-voting secretary to support the council, so the DOE gets 2 statutory members as compared to the traditional 1 per department. There are also 8 voting members appointed by cabinet, of which at least 4 have scientific or technical expertise, and at least 1 will be from each of the dominant original districts of West Bay, Georgetown, Cameron Brack, Little Cayman, Bordentown, Northside, and East End. For a quick rundown of the lineup, we have Mr. Ian Kirkham. He's the chairperson and voting member. His field of expertise is terrestrial ecology. We have our good friend, Mr. Geddes Hislop. He's a voting member, and his field of expertise is wildlife conservation. He also represents the District of West Bay. We have Mr. Walling Whitaker, our good buddy, voting member. His field of expertise is environmental engineering and also is the representative for Georgetown. Dr. Samantha Shields, voting member. Her field of expertise is conservation medicine. Catherine Childs, voting member. She represents the National Trust as their member on the board. Nicholas Foster, voting member, representing Bodden Town. Donald McLean, replacing our good friend and buddy Arden McLean under the previous version of this National Conservation Council as a voting member and representative for East End. Harris McCoy, the voting member and representative for North Side. So congratulations. These are the new formal members of the National Conservation Council, and by all indication, all talk about amending that Conservation Act seems to have dropped by the wayside, so we don't suspect to see much of that happening in the strategic policy statement. But again, stranger things have been known to happen, so we'll wait and see. But that is the board that will oversee and sort of be the gatekeepers on all things environmental.
A new board that will, amongst other things, have to deal with issues like first of all, I would reiterate that just about everything that you do as a project in Cayman becomes controversial.
Yes.
But the East-West Arterial is what I was going to refer to.
Yes.
All right, that was one of the big things. Again, home of the lime lizards and a couple other things.
Well, the mangrove buffer,
right? Yeah.
Areas that would otherwise be destroyed along the shoreline.
Yeah.
What is also missing from the Ministry of Health and Environment is the big elephant in the room, literally, Mount Trashmore, the waste management plan. Remember, it was certainly formerly Regen, but it was determined that was too costly,
that was
little value for money. But the lifespan of Mount Trashmore is ticking away as we try to figure out what we're going to do, and missing from that glittering generalities, as you quite rightly put it, which really I'm going to remember that.
Well, we do have the same minister.
Absence of a solution for the dump being proposed. Maybe that'll come later as well.
We do have the same minister responsible for sustainability in terms of Ms. Wilk.
Yes.
Emanks. It would be interesting to see if the overall composition of the government causes any changes in policies as it relates to that. That's going to be interesting.
Indeed.
But, I want to just stress as well, on that what is it, NCC, National Conservation Committee, I think it's important to note. Council. Yeah. Okay. I think it's important to note that it talks about voting members, and then you have the ex officio members, then they stress that they don't vote.
Right. Well, actually, the ex officio are also voting members.
They also vote?
They're also voting members.
Really?
Really.
Because I always thought they were relegated to just influencing everything.
No, their ex officio means that they don't get appointed. They're official. They're there.
But they still allow them to vote.
But they're allowed to vote. But obviously, the government, I mean, you look at it, you would consider the ex officio as the representational side of the government side. You got to have somebody on this council that represents the government interests.
Right. But I mean, even on the Turtle Senate board, for example, where I say you'll have ex officio members, but not necessarily voting per se. A lot of times you're just there in a sort of expertise capacity influencing, but not necessarily voting. But okay, fine, they are voting.
They are voting.
Interesting.
Yes, very interesting indeed. And I was just going to say, also at that first cabinet meeting on the 21st of May, when we, ask ourselves what some of the focuses may be or the priorities may be, again, we don't have to guess. The government also alluded to some of them. The new coalition approved drafting instructions for a long list of amendments to laws and regulations. The bulk relate to financial services. So again, we remember that bit of news on financial services that got us off the FATF gray list, and as we argue, perhaps one of the how shall we say things that we had to give up in the negotiation process was to soften the regulations in terms of the beneficial ownership regime, making it open to journalists, to those in the media, which we believe is pretty much saying it is now open to the public when we consider today's digital media age. But that has yet to be tested. We shall see. But more amendments for financial services. They also gave an indication on what another of the priorities will be approving for mortgage and foreclosure reform, which I think is very important. This is a topic that has been certainly talked about in our realm, so in the media and talk shows environment, and raised by a number of Caymanians from, a civic standpoint, that this is needed. We look at the foreclosure regime.
I touched on it a few days ago.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I know for a fact that, under the 2017-2021 administration, the then Minister of Financial Services, the Honorable Tara Rivers, commissioned a report to look at, what options do exist and what could be reformed, but it was never tackled, but the information is there. Well, the cabinet of the National Coalition for Caymanians have said that there will be amendments being proposed at some point in time that relate to mortgage and foreclosure reform. We don't know what that will be, but we think that is another important step in the right direction. There will also be amendments for the Public Service Management Act, paving the way for what we know is term limits for non-Caymanian civil servants. Coming up after the break, there was another announcement when we talked about the immigration reform specifically, starting with the term limits for civil servants, balancing what has already existed for a long time in the private sector and the rollover policy, which again was so eloquently and informatively discussed with our guest this week, Mr. Nick Joseph. I can't say enough about, really, it's nice that our listeners can learn something from what we discuss, but when we as hosts can learn and discover new things as a result of our guests, that's really special, I think. And again, we got that from Nick Joseph earlier this week. So
definitely.
Thanking and acknowledging my colleague for making that conversation happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
But it was alluded or suggested or teased that further reforms might be coming down the pipeline in the private sector. Well, I think it was just yesterday, the government, this time the Honorable Premier and the Honorable Minister responsible for Labor, Mr. Michael Miles, made an announcement on YouTube. And when we come back after the break, the top of the hour break, that is where we will take our 5 o'clock conversation. But we say all of this to say that this is in the good news category, because rather than speculating or guessing what the government will be doing, what are its priority objectives and some of its goals for the next 4 years, whilst we haven't heard what their plan is, if one would say as a group in comprehensive form, it is nice to see that the ministers, we heard Minister Ralston Anglin being quoted in the media for a few things. I haven't quite read them, to be honest with you, so I can't tell you what they are. But he's making positive action and, informing the public about his plans. Well, Minister Wilkes is doing the same. So we can use this information to inform us and, of course, inform our discussions.
I don't know how much time do we have there on the clock?
3:45.
Well, when you mentioned about the foreclosure, are they saying that they'll be bringing new amendments to that, right?
That's what they say.
I remember having a discussion at one point in time. I think it is actually Mr. Jose Griffith that's actually in charge of I think it's the Law Revision Commission. I could have the wrong TLA.
I think it's the Law Reform Commission.
I think that's what I said, Law Reform Commission.
I think it's a law review, but not to
okay, fine. That's fine. That's fine. We won't get stuck on the R's.
No, we won't.
The R and R. But yeah, the Law Reform Commission, I believe, is what it is. And I think it's Mr. Jose Griffin who we chatted. I think they were working on this issue about foreclosures. And I want to get more information because I think it would be good to have someone, either him or someone from his office, come on the program as well, because that, I think, is something important for the public to understand, is that you're actually, to the best of my knowledge, allowed as the public to be able to make your suggestions and contributions towards the Law Revision Commission. So in other words, I might have a pet peeve, just saying, Austin, I might have a pet peeve about certain processes within the banks. And you can get up and make some suggestions in terms of how those laws could be amended to make things better.
Yes.
To the Law Revision or Reform Commission. I may have said revision. No, you got it. Or did you put that in my head, Mr.
Trust me.
Yeah, I got it?
No, you said
I'll believe
the
you.
first time, but
I'll
I was
believe
just correcting you.
LRC.
I do it all the time.
Whatever. One of those things.
I do it all the time. That's what I'm here for, buddy.
We're here to
I
help.
used to be with the government. I'm here to help.
Look up over here. I like that one. So LRC, as far as I know, you're actually allowed to make these sort of recommendations. And again, that's one of the groups I think we'll try to get him here in the studio because that is something absolutely positive and powerful for the community that a lot of people may not be aware of.
Yes.
You know, we stumble upon things and policies like one of my other little peeves is, you know, like, why do you have to have a valid driver's license? Like, does it really matter if it's like a couple of days expired? So whatever it is, you could potentially make suggestions and they will look at whether those reforms can and could and should take place. I want to get a read of what they're going to bring in terms of foreclosures because that is, as you've said, a very important issue. And quite frankly, I remember Mr. Bryan, Kenneth Bryan, when he was running, I think we had Marco Archer sitting in the studio. And that was one of his pet peeves, calling in, what's happening? All the people losing their homes.
That's right. That's
So
right. So this issue has been around
forever
for a
and a
while
day.
and discussed for some time.
As with quite a few.
As with quite a few things. We can give many examples in this regard. And I think that is why it's so important to acknowledge when a government picks up
Finally something happening.
these things and you see some final movement, forward movement in that regard. So that, I guess, summarizes and makes up our good news for this Friday. There'll be more good news coming up, as I said, coming up after the break. Some more information on how the government plans to reform immigration. That is where we will kick off when we come back.
Underscore reform.
But keep it locked. Coming up next, we go off to the BBC top of the hour news. The phone lines will remain open on this Open Mic Friday. 745-2626 is the number. Or you can also reach out to us on our version of the 1-800 line. Our WhatsApp number, 928-2562. But keep it locked. There'll be more Straight Talk coming up next right here on Bobo 103.1 FM.
Bobo.
How can we understand the world better?
The BBC World Service is a window onto the wider world.
The vantage point from which to survey a new horizon.
News, reports, and analysis from around the world.
Stories we think matter.
Different people from different societies.
We get to the heart of global issues.
News, stories, and global perspectives from the BBC World Service.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. The BBC is the world's most trusted news source. And Bobo 103.1 is where you'll find the BBC World Service.
BBC News, the world news from the BBC.
And the home of Cayman's most listened to top shows.
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth.
And welcome to Straight Talk. I'm your host, Austin Harris.
And I'm Ellio Solomon.
Across Cayman, on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1.
Welcome to our newsroom here in central London. We place ourselves here at a little desk right in the thick of things.
OS from the BBC.
We can catch the very latest news from our colleagues, not just in this enormous room, but also from our colleagues around the world.
I'm in the room where they're treating children.
This is a combat zone.
The situation after the typhoon is very complicated.
It was a very tense situation.
OS from the BBC.
The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo FM. This is Bobo 103.1, powered by Health Services Authority. At Health Services Authority, they are committed to caring for you. They are Cayman's largest and longest-standing healthcare provider, offering the most comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and public health services at 9 different locations across all 3 islands. Across Cayman on 103.1 FM, online, and on your smart speaker. The home of the BBC World Service. This is Bobo 103.1.
BBC News with Sue Montgomery. Donald Trump has heaped praise on Elon Musk at a press conference marking the world's richest person's exit from the US government. The president said his billionaire backer had led one of the most consequential reform programs in recent memory.
Today it's about a man named Elon, and he's one of the greatest business leaders and innovators the world has ever produced. He stepped forward to put his very great talents into the service of our nation, and we appreciate it. And just want to say that Elon has worked tirelessly helping lead the most sweeping and consequential government reform program in generations.
Mr. Musk said he'd remain an advisor to the White House and the work of his cost-cutting department would continue. The United Nations says what it calls the current mass starvation in Gaza can be stopped, but this will take political will. Philippe Lazzarini, who heads the UN agency supporting Palestinians, said Gaza's people were both starving and trying to survive heavy bombing. Donald Trump has accused China of breaching a deal that paused a hugely disruptive trade war with the United States. He didn't specify how Beijing had violated the deal, which was announced earlier this month. Tom Bateman is in Washington.
Now, what President Trump has said in his social media post is that there was civil unrest, to use his words, in China as a result of the tariffs that he had imposed, with factories closing and so on. Certainly no evidence that we're aware of civil unrest. And he said that he did this deal with the Chinese to prevent this happening, to stabilise China and its economy. But he says now China is violating the agreement. It feels like he is ramping up the rhetoric in order to try and draw back the Chinese to the table to try and get those talks back on track.
The Czech Justice Minister Pavel Blažek has resigned after it was revealed that his ministry accepted a huge donation in cryptocurrency from a convicted drug dealer. Mr. Blažek said he saw nothing illegal or unethical about accepting the gift. Rob Cameron reports.
Pavel Blažek has insisted that the donation of 480 bitcoins, which the ministry later sold for 40 million euros, was fully legal, and the money would go towards helping victims of crime and improving prisons. However, it's unclear how convicted criminal Tomáš Jiříkovský made the money. We do know he ran an illegal online marketplace for drugs and medicines and served 4 years in prison for embezzlement and drug trafficking. Mr. Blažek argued that shouldn't stop him from donating the money as a form of penance. The media and the opposition have been less understanding.
BBC News. The Nigerian government has ordered emergency and security agencies to intensify search and rescue efforts after flooding killed nearly 120 people in Niger State. 2 districts in the town of Mokwa were worst hit after torrential rains early on Wednesday swept away many homes. The state governor has urged residents to remain calm as authorities respond to the emergency. Taylor Swift has bought back the rights to her first 6 albums, ending a long-running battle over the ownership of her music. The US singer lost control of the master tape 6 years ago when a record executive, Scooter Braun, took over her former label. Swift objected to the deal, accused Braun of bullying, and began re-recording her own versions of the albums. The boss of Ryanair, Michael O'Leary, is on track to receive bonuses worth well over $100 million in what's thought to be one of the biggest payouts in European corporate history. He's due to be rewarded because shares in the budget airline closed above their target price for a 28th consecutive day. Loretta Swit, who starred in one of the most successful ever shows on American television, MASH, has died. She was 87. This report from Regan Morris.
Loretta Swit was Emmy-nominated 10 years in a row for playing Major Margaret Houlihan, the demanding head army nurse in MASH. She won the top TV prize twice, in 1980 and 1982. Swit also had a long career on stage and screen and ran a charity for animals. But it's her role in MASH for which she will be most remembered. Set during the Korean War and filmed in the hills of Malibu, MASH originally portrayed Major Houlihan as a stereotypical blonde bombshell known as Hot Lips Houlihan. Swit urged the writers to ditch the nickname, which they did in later seasons, and show Major Houlihan more respect as a complicated professional at war.
BBC News.
Views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, K-Man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM with your host, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris. Happy Friday, and welcome to another Open Mic Friday here on the program. Time in studio is now 7 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock as we move on to our primary discussion of the evening. But before doing so, reminding you that the phone lines are open at 745-2626, or you can reach out to us on our WhatsApp line, 928-2562. From there, you can either leave us a WhatsApp audio note or a traditional WhatsApp text message. Whilst we are broadcasting live on your radio dial at 103.1 FM, we are also simulcasting live over YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Ellio, in the headlines yesterday, sweeping changes to Cayman's immigration law and regulations are in the pipeline. Again, continuing along the same lines that we talked about prior to the break, that whilst we speculate on what the government's plans are, as we get closer to the strategic policy statement, we don't have to speculate much longer because the government is coming out and telling you what it has planned. On the heels of last week's announcement concerning the term limit requirements for foreign civil servants, the National Coalition for Caymanians government revealed plans for further reforms. These include changes to the permanent residency point system used to determine if longtime residents can stay in Cayman indefinitely. Reforms will also make it harder for work permit holders to switch jobs, to create new powers to revoke permanent residency and work certificate in marriages of convenience, and deport even foreign workers who flout the laws of the Cayman Islands. So significant immigration reforms coming forward. I think the takeaway that we can get from that is the question we asked ourselves also either this week or at the tail end of last week when the term limit policy was announced for public servants or civil servants, was how much of the immigration white paper that was tabled in Parliament on January 31st of this year, how much will that play into the government's immigration reform plans? Well, we see from headlines yesterday, and both in the media, news media, as well as on YouTube, and particularly the government page, the government very clearly is answering that question. Yes, they are following on proposals which started as recommendations contained in that immigration white paper. These new measures will come alongside the creation of a new national workforce database, as well as the national workforce plan. To explain it best in their own words, we have a clip that is a update from the Premier, Honorable Andre Ebanks, and some commentary coming for the first time publicly from the Honorable Michael Miles. So let's have a listen and then come back and talk about it, shall we?
Hello, everyone. Our government is taking clear, thoughtful steps to strengthen our workforce and support long-term opportunity for everyone who calls the Cayman Islands home. This week, Cabinet approved important drafting instructions to modernize our immigration legislation to build a stronger, fairer system. Our key goal is to ensure that Caymanians have solid pathways into the workforce, into long-term careers, and into leadership. At the same time, we know our economy relies on talent and support from all corners of our community and the globe. That's why we're taking a balanced approach, one that supports Caymanian advancement while continuing to meet the essential workforce needs of businesses and residents alike.
We are creating a national workforce database and a national workforce plan. The database will serve as a strategic tool that helps us understand what skills we have, what jobs are needed, and where we can better align education and training. These and other measures are necessary to bring better balance to establishing sufficient employment and upward mobility opportunities for Caymanians. These changes will help protect Caymanian opportunities, reduce legal loopholes, and make it easier to match the right people to the right jobs and the right industries. We're also updating how work permits and residency are managed. The Ministry of Caymanian Employment and Immigration will need to continuously review the Immigration Act to ensure that it is fit for purpose while protecting the interests of Caymanians by making sure our systems are fair, transparent, and focused on long-term impact. Last week, Cabinet approved draft instructions for changes to the term limits for non-Caymanian civil servants beginning the 1st of January 2026. This aligns with the private sector standards and opens more space for Caymanians in public service roles while continuing to value and respect the contribution of non-Caymanian colleagues. Together, these reforms are a key part of the effort to right-size immigration, ensuring that the size and shape of our workforce meets the needs of our people and our economy.
We are not doing this alone. We've already started working with community partners, like the Chamber of Commerce, on creating a working group to develop a comprehensive national workforce plan. And once the draft legislation is prepared, we'll be inviting suitable public consultation. This is about planning ahead, giving Caymanians the support, training, and pathways to move into more leadership and specialized roles, giving our newly graduated Caymanians the opportunities that they deserve. This is a time of transformation, a time of opportunity. Together, we can build a stronger, fairer Cayman, one where talent is developed, opportunity is shared, and our workforce and immigration system is ready for the future. Thank you, and may God bless these Cayman Islands.
And there you go. That was commentary emanating from the Honorable Premier and the Minister of, arguably, Labor.
Labor is definitely one area.
Indeed. First of all, I want to congratulate the government, and this time specifically the Minister, Michael Miles, for taking this important step in this direction, particularly during his first 100 days in office. But I think it's also important because this, like so many of the conversations that we have, particularly what we're just having as it relates to how long some of these subject matters have been ongoing. And let me state from the beginning, it is not my attempt to throw water on or throw cold water specifically on the government and or this announcement. I'm fully behind it, fully in support of it. I congratulate the Honorable Minister Miles and the Honorable Premier for making the announcement and moving us again a little further down the field on this whole issue of immigration reform. But I think it's important to mention that this is not new information, nor does it represent a new plan, but is in fact instead a carry forward from the coalition, the Unity Coalition, in which I was a part of, and in particular shared responsibility for the Ministry of what was called at the time the Ministry of Human Resources, a follow-on or a play on the whole Ministry of Labor. I don't know what they call it again today, but it's the same thing. But you will recall, certainly during the 2017-2021 period, some might say the first real steps towards long-term immigration reform started with the Immigration Transition Act, when we sought to separate the immigration component from the border control component. And in this regard of the workforce database in particular, persons may recall my public utterances at the time as a parliamentary secretary, responsibility for the Ministry of Human Resources, whether it was on shows like this, in particular, I think Star 92.7 was around at the time, as well as Radio Cayman, both the morning and the evening shows. Mm-hmm. People will remember me saying that we know more about our work permit or our foreign expatriate workers than we do about our own Caymanians, and that we needed to do a better job.
No surprise there.
No, absolutely. We needed to establish information on our people so that we can then in turn make better evidence-based decision as they relate to job employment opportunities, as well as who gets to stay and who gets to leave. While our plan did include a plan or policy objective for the creation of exactly this workforce national database that Minister Miles speaks of, it also proposed the online jobs portal used by work. That effort was also, I think, groundbreaking at the time because it represented the first real attempt to digitize or make electronic the immigration process away from the traditional analog or paper files process. Again, when we made the immigration transition, persons will remember, if you've been here long enough, the old immigration building there on Elgin Avenue, that circular room, used to have lines running out the door, persons coming in and making their applications for work permits or visas or to stay on the island longer, or anything immigration related, had to do it in person. The online jobs portal was viewed as a way of making that process more efficient and easier by putting it online, allowing, obviously, work permits to be determined, employers to place their job ad, because it also represented, remember, we took away the whole advertising of jobs from the newspaper and we put it online. So we still needed a mechanism in order to make that process public, and we thought, let's digitize it and focus on the online jobs portal, which took the priority in terms of policy objectives. It happened. You set 5 goals, but you can't complete all 5 at the same time, then you prioritize. So the online jobs portal came first, and whilst it was not intended to be that official database that Minister Miles speaks of, it was viewed at the time that it could be a tool that would help the government gather that vital information, because an important aspect of that online work portal, that jobs portal, was that it encouraged Caymanians, particularly unemployed Caymanians, to register their name, their skill set, their past work experience, as well as their academic qualifications, so that we could match that new information with information we already know from the work permit system in particular, and also so that the system could generate alerts that would identify and be issued to those Caymanians registered, so they would be aware of first of any new jobs that come available, in an attempt to fulfill the requirement under the immigration law and labor law that says Caymanians should have the proverbial first bite at the apple in any new jobs that are available. So we thought we were covering our bases. Now, I say all of that to say that I can honestly say, somewhat ashamedly so, that that online jobs portal, that first version, that version 1.0, proved to be an abysmal failure. It was not user-friendly. It was deemed as confusing to employers as well as, Caymanians who use the service itself. We simply couldn't get the technology to do what we wanted it to do, and I think this was acknowledged by the ministry officials and whatnot. So it hasn't gone away, but what they've done is they've gone back to the drawing board. So right now, the Ministry of Labor or whatever, through immigration, are working on version 2.0, which I think is a step in the right direction. So I say all of that to say that this plan for a national workforce database goes back to 2017 and 2021. It's not a new plan, but it is an important step in the ongoing direction towards true and real immigration reform. And that is why I give kudos and congratulations first to the Honorable Premier, because he certainly was involved in those initial early day reforms, albeit from a civil servant standpoint. But to see that...
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, yes, I would just add an important side benefit or fact. The Honorable Andre Ebanks served as...
I knew he was in the government, but I didn't know he worked on that specifically.
Well, he worked specifically, not attached to Human Resources or Labor, but he was the Deputy Chief Officer for another ministry, which I also had shared responsibility for, and that was Community Affairs.
Okay.
But Community Affairs worked hand in hand at that time with Human Resources or Labor, because it was felt that the more Caymanians that we can get employed and in jobs means the less Caymanians have to, expect or depend on financial assistance through the NEU or whatnot. So we were always working in tandem towards, much like we keep coming back to, the strategic policy statement of the government. That document outlines to the public, to the government, what the plans are to keep members on the same page, because 4 years goes by quickly and it's easy to get lost, but it also guides the civil service, the chief officers and deputy chief officers. And whilst I say that Andre Ebanks wasn't necessarily attached directly to labor, once a week, and I think it still continues to this day, there's a weekly chief officers meeting where all of the chief officers from all the ministries get together. Presumably now, I've never attended these meetings because it's very much a civil service or a operational staff sort of remit world. We try to express how the separation between government and the public service works in actual operation. This is one of those examples. So I say that to say that whilst he may not have been directly attached to the ministry, he was present at the meetings where the long-term overarching goals were being discussed and obviously understood the nuances or the connectivity between labor, human resources, employment opportunities with financial assistance, welfare distribution, and whatnot. So were aware of it. And again, I see this in my mind as the Honorable Andre Ebanks, now Premier, who, again, kudos, and I'm so impressed with it, continuing from his history with the government in a continued direction. And I think that is important because for far too often we see after one administration after the next, they try to either trump the last administration, dismantle the plans of the last administration, start all over again. And arguably, that's how we keep spinning our wheels on this issue. Very rarely does the government incoming choose to pick up on the ideas of the last administration and move that proverbial ball further down the road. But this certainly seems to be not the Achilles heel of the National Coalition government for Caymanians. It seems to me that they agree that there is no patent or exclusivity on good ideas. A good idea is a good idea, whoever comes up with it.
And that's a positive attitude.
That is a very positive attitude. That is a very adult attitude. That is a very refreshing attitude. So by all indications, the National Coalition for Caymanians continues to impress the heck out of me by what they are doing. You can say anything, but you're judged by what you do. And this is where I give kudos to the minister, to the premier, for taking a good idea, a older idea,
and running with it.
So congratulations to them. We look forward to obviously learning more about these policy directives and decisions. And we hope we can help you. We're talking specifically to members of the government. Obviously, express that message and ensure that message gets to the people who matter, the people in the country, and in this case, certainly young Caymanians who are either unemployed, looking for jobs, coming out of school, those perhaps with upward mobility plans, to register, get in at the ground floor so that, your opportunities can be real. But more importantly, when we talk about immigration reform, we have to commit to ourselves that going forward, our decisions are based on provable, hard evidence that we can look at rather than just gestures or feelings that, I know we got X number of Caymanians graduating school. What are the, prospects for them when they graduate university? Are they going to find a job? We recognize today that is a problem that we haven't answered. But if we can create that database, match it with the information we already have on the work permit holders through the work permit system, then we have a better chance of understanding what work permits are coming due. Who doesn't necessarily have to apply for PR because we have an available Caymanian that can move into the ranks. And with the government, of course, through the deputy governor intimidating just last week that he will create these succession plans and upward mobility opportunities to potentially replace those expatriates who may be rolled over. Again, that's a step in the right direction. But let's do so from a evidence-based, a fact-based approach rather than, I guess, or stick my finger in the air and, which way the wind is blowing. Let's do so with purpose, and then we might see some real successful outcomes, specifically as they relate to Caymanians. So I think this is tremendous news. Kudos to the government. Congratulations. Picking up a good idea and running with it, showing government continuity. That's what real leadership looks like in practice. And I know at some point in time this government is going to disappoint me. I don't want to take a pessimistic approach, but I'm not used to this kind of,
Well, you can't get
confidence.
You can't always get it perfect, but you definitely want to take time out to make sure that you're giving them kudos when they deserve it.
Oh, indeed.
So that at least there's a balance if tomorrow you have to say something otherwise. But you mentioned some good information there, and I don't want to put you too much on the spot. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of rust between 2017 and today, Mr. Harris.
Just a little.
Just a little bit of rust.
Water under the bridge.
But just to the best. So if you can't remember, then we'll just set it aside and discuss it another day, because that has, how many years is that? My goodness, that's 3 to make it 20, and now we're 5, like 8 years ago.
Well, 2021.
Oh, between 21. Okay,
17 and 2021 was my last time in government.
Oh, okay, fine. Okay.
Didn't feel me fit to continue, but that's all right.
I was counting from the 17, you see.
But yes, certainly. Well, the process started in 17. Absolutely.
So, but what happened then? I mean, in relation to the database system, because you talked about, ads not having to go into Compass anymore.
Yeah.
Well, so was it a case now that there's a website that everyone could get access to see all the jobs that were going to be? Okay.
That was, again, the intended purpose behind the online jobs portal. Every job that comes available in the country
had to be posted there.
Mandated. The Immigration Transition Act mandates it. I can find the specific paragraph and section that states it.
I believe you.
But it was required that all jobs had to be posted in this database. So that would have replaced the requirement for classified ad publication. Though I understand just from, word on the street that the government also intends to bring back classified advertising for jobs again.
I was going to say,
perhaps for those persons who don't yet have a computer or are computer friendly. But yes, to answer your question, the plan was that all jobs would have been posted and included on that registry. And that's why we encourage Caymanian unemployed persons to register. So A, they would know they exist, but also alerts would be sent out to those who were registered saying, listen, this job matches your skill set, maybe you should apply type thing.
I imagine there were probably certain papers that you didn't give you good ink for that, Mr. Harris. They lost a lot of revenues on the job ads.
Yeah.
But, okay, but was it a case that did it actually happen in terms of all the jobs being published on the website? And did everyone have access to that? Because I know that, sorry to cut you, but I know that there, in terms of government jobs, I saw a lot of those, but I don't recall seeing this on the private sector side.
Well, as always, we started using the government jobs because that was immediately available to us. And that was the nature of the problem when I said the technology wasn't user-friendly, so we couldn't, we could acquire the data, but making that data available through a distribution form proved problematic. So version 1.0 proved to be an abysmal failure, but such is life. We do have to pause, take a short commercial break, but happy to pick this up when we come back right here on Bobo 103.1.
More Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio coming up. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Bobo 103.1.
Insurance matters. It gives you the confidence to live life as you should, knowing you're protected. As a leading local insurer for over 25 years, Highland Heritage has a consistent track record of providing best-in-class customer service with quick and efficient claims processing. This means insurance you can rely on when you need it most. The Highland Heritage Way. Visit us online at islandheritageinsurance.com today to learn more about our home, contents, motor, marine, and commercial insurance products. Go on and live your life. With Island Heritage, you can.
With you in mind, we have your style. Find what you need down every aisle. You want saving, selection, and quality. That's why we're your home store. Home store. The way to make a home. The way to make a home.
We all work hard to one day buy the house of our dreams. Why wouldn't you protect it? With Saxon, you now have the option to get a home insurance quote online. Avoid the waiting in lines and the traffic. Simply log on to saxon.ky and click to get a quote to get started. At Saxon, we pride ourselves on providing our customers with excellent customer service and convenience. So what are you waiting for? Visit saxon.ky today from the comfort of your home or office to get your quote and protect the things you love. Saxon. Smart Insurance.
At Priced Right, spending less on everyday products is easy.
Spend less on office supplies, tools, and automotive products.
Spend less on groceries, fresh produce, and meat.
Spend less on electronics, TVs, and speakers.
Spend less on home furnishings, beauty products, and apparel.
At Priced Right, we believe you can live better for less.
To start saving, visit us at the Airport Center in Georgetown or at Republic's Plaza in West Bay.
For more info, visit pricedright.ky. Live better for less at Priced Right.
Cayman, Units is here, the island's newest move-in and storage solution. Our robot delivery system allows you to put your unit almost anywhere while providing level loading, uploading, and minimizing shifting. What's even better, no time constraints. Pack at your own pace for moving or store as long as you need. Short-term or long-term, at the home or on the job site. Units, fast, safe, and secure. Check us out at units.ky and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
When it comes to weekly meal prep, I trust Kirk Market to provide the best value for quality proteins. The butchers at Kirk Market are super helpful. They always slice my steaks perfectly. Kirk Market has everything I need for healthy and flavorful protein-packed meals. From lean cuts of CAB choice beef, tender CAB prime beef, the juiciest pork, and all-natural hormone-free poultry, to their seafood section with everything from fresh local snapper to omega-3 rich salmon. I choose Kirk Market for the highest quality proteins to support my healthy lifestyle. Kirk Market. Eat well, live well, and discover a world of choice.
Across Cayman on FM, online, and on your smart speaker. This is Bobo 103.1. Powered by Health Services Authority. Committed to caring for you. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio do not necessarily reflect or represent the views of Stingray Media, its staff, or contributors. Callers to the program accept full responsibility for the views expressed. The show host and affiliates are not liable for any statements made or any harm claimed. All callers to the program indemnify Straight Talk from all claims. Offensive, defamatory, or unlawful content will not be tolerated. Be a part of the conversation by calling 745-2626. Now, here's Straight Talk with Austin and Ellio on Bobo 103.1.
And welcome back, man, to more Straight Talk here on Bobo 103.1 FM and simulcast live over YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. We're your host, Ellio Solomon, myself, Austin Harris. Time in studios now, 33, soon to be 34 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. The phone lines remain open at 745-2626, or you can reach out to us on our WhatsApp number, 928-2562, and from there send us either a WhatsApp audio note or a traditional WhatsApp text message. Prior to the break, we were discussing the most recent furtherance of the ongoing immigration reform plans by the current administration, the National Coalition for Caymanians, with the announcement that a national workforce database will be a goal and objective of the government, which again, we think is a step in the right direction, and we say kudos to the government administration for doing so.
Yes, I just following up on the questions. I mean, I did get a little bit information off the break, or during the break. But despite the little bit of rust that exists between 2017-21 up until today, I don't recall seeing the websites. I mean, was it a case that did it actually end up working, that you were getting the publication of all these private sector ads and so on? Because I don't recall seeing it.
Yes and no. It was called the Online Jobs Portal, and it was a big deal when we rolled out the whole immigration transition specific to how are we going to deal with the customer interaction aspect. We wanted to move away from the long lines, and we're driving or encouraging everybody to use the online option, which was the Online Jobs Portal. I was present for a number of stakeholder group meetings specific to employers, because it was the employers in the first instance that we wanted to utilize the service so that, you know, they can post the job availability ads. And we asked questions of how easy was it to post those ads. Also, we asked how easy was it to receive alerts that persons are applying, and are those persons Caymanians, or are they, you know, expatriates, etc. And that was where the rub was. I said, what the feedback we got from the employers were that they didn't understand it in many cases. In many other cases, it was confusing to operate. And I think the general way I would explain it is that it wasn't user-friendly for the employer. And if that wasn't user-friendly for the employer, those Caymanians who were encouraged to register, it was even more so confusing for them. You know, the usual, you fill out an application page, you think you're moving on to the next, you know, form or the next session, but in fact you lose all your information. You got to start all over again. There were just issues. There were just issues. Version 1.0 in that endeavor was just challenges. Because
the ideal scenario to me sounds like you want to be able to make it that I can sit at home and I can type up my resume. It's in Word, and I can just upload it.
Yes.
You know, this is Ellio. I've just uploaded my resume. I'm looking for a job. I've got all of my crap, my details in there.
Yes.
And then on the flip side of that, or on the other side of the coin, is the employer who just should be able to upload their job ad in Word, and they put it there, and then you should have a computer doing all the spider work that searches and says, hold on a second, you just said you needed this, and I got the keywords, and I'm searching through all these resumes, and here comes 28 resumes.
Exactly.
Ping, ping. These people match.
Exactly. Like I say all the time, I don't have to know how a computer works to know what it is I want it to achieve.
Right.
And that was a position of government. This is what we wanted it to do. And that was also the challenge between what we wanted it to do and what we are capable of making it do. And again, it wasn't for lack of effort.
You knew what you wanted to bridge. You just couldn't find a proper bridge builder.
Quite right. Exactly. So we're on version 2.0 of that process.
Let's see what happens.
How far, forward progress they've made on it. That's certainly for the current administration to tell us. But again, it is a plan that has come from a previous administration. It is, bar none. It's not a new idea. But it's encouraging that we've picked up a good idea and we're taking it to the next stage. It is absolutely important. Maybe now we get somewhere as opposed to, as is tradition, to start from scratch and, reinvent the wheel, as they say. So that's what was done. Again, we give kudos and credits to the Honorable Premier, the Honorable Minister of Labor, Michael Miles, for this workforce development or workforce database that they aspire to create. And we wish them luck in making it happen, and whatever we can do to, assist those endeavors, then we certainly will. Looks like we do have a comment coming in on the WhatsApp line, particularly from the audio note. Let's have a listen.
Good evening, Austin and Ellio. Just a few short points I want to make. I think that it is good that the government should be given kudos when they are trying to do something, and I really agree with that. And you have to understand that government is trying to deal with something that is very emotive, but at the same time they want to be fair. But for me, I think that what the government should also try to do, they should try now to tell us these measures that they have put in place and are putting in place, what is their expected result? For example, when they do the immigration reform, how much reduction do they expect, for example, in a grant of PR and PR and status, and how many more students do they expect that they are going to employ as a result of these changes? To me, unless they do that, I think that it will be a little bit of a problem, because at the end of the day, what people are concerned about in the Cayman Islands is displacement. So many status grants that they are being displaced. I understand actually the number of the Caymanians as of right from a certain research done by a Caymanian who recently got her PhD. There's only about 28% of the people in the workforce who are Caymanians as of right. So a projection of the expected result and therefore and also a review over time, I think is very important. Thank you.
Thank you, too, as well. Appreciate that comment, that feedback. And I think the listeners bang on accurate. I mean, as they say, before you put forward a plan, what is it you're trying to fix?
Mm-hmm.
And of that, what you're trying to fix, what are your expected outcomes? How is this goal going to get you further down, the road in terms of outcomes or achievements? I think that's bang on accurate. And I'm glad he brought us back to the other wider immigration reforms that are planned under this administration, because as I stated earlier on, we asked whether or not the immigration white paper that was tabled in Parliament on the 31st of January under the then UPM administration, how much of that would play into the strategic policies of the NCFC as part of their immigration reform. And it seems that they will. In particular, amongst them, they have indicated in the first instance that they plan on renaming the legislation to either the Caymanian Protection Act or otherwise, but that's certainly what was included in the white paper. They intend on increasing the term limits from 9 years to 10 years. So I suspect you can be here a bit longer, but also making the path to status through permanent residency and naturalization 20 years, which is an increase past the current 15. These are some of the stated goals of this government's immigration reform plan. But to Samamba's point,
I do want to comment on the 10-year thing, but just back on to Mr. Simamba's point. I think, first of all, he's spot on. I definitely think you want to be able to provide that level of information. But I know you and I have agreed that as persons who have been elected, I think it's very important to share our experience.
Yes.
And, you know, one of the sad realities is that you get, and you see it all the time now with videos and everything that's produced. You keep hearing, Ellio, it has to take place in 30 seconds or no one's listening.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
We're
this
an immediate gratification society.
instant gratification.
Instant
It is
gratification.
becoming a very sad world in many instances because, and it's no different with the politicians. I can tell you that the majority of people, it's sad, but they don't want to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to get the information out to them quickly. And so what the government would have done, again, to take their side on that particular point, is give this macro announcement that I think very quickly gives the objective of the government, the overarching objective of the government, the direction in which we're going.
Right.
Enough to be able to capture the minds and hopefully the imagination of the general public to say, aha, I like it. And then they run off with their own level of, calculations and subjectivity and objectivity, whatever, and hopefully come up with something positive.
Right.
But to his point, there are people that they want a little bit more meat because we want to be able to look and say, do I agree with this? Does this really make sense? And to his other point, be able to measure it and see, we thought this was what was going to happen, but here's what we actually got in reality.
Right.
So I hope that the government does follow it up in terms of those specifics so that persons like himself, and I believe that it would fall in the same category, can get satisfied in terms of saying, I think I understand more greater detail in terms of the specifics as to what they're trying to accomplish, what they believe they're going to accomplish, and then we can go back afterwards and see whether we have achieved those specific projections.
Absolutely.
Now, when I hear about this 10-year thing, again, I got to get into the specifics of that, but it was always stated, if you allow the person to stay in this country for 10 years, they get right of tenure. That's what I heard. This is what I heard from the beginning.
Right. So are we going backwards?
So let's just be clear. Repeat it.
But it says increasing the term limits from 9 years to 10 years.
Right. And I was told I remember, I think it was you and I on a talk show back in 2006, 2007. Of course it was you.
Of course it was.
And I remember, we were. I mean, because I know Barra was there for a little while, but 2006, 2007, I remember having from then Mr. O'Connor, so C. We affectionately refer to him.
Yes.
And I remember the talk about the implementation. We were just getting into the talking about the implementation of the rollover policy, and it was Bermuda doing this, and we were going to follow. And, blah, blah.
And he was cabinet secretary at the time.
I think he was, at the time he was head of immigration.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yes, he was. Thank you.
He was head of immigration at the time.
Thank you. I had forgotten about his.
No problem. I'm the government. We're here to help.
We're here to help, indeed, yes. O'Connor was the chief immigration officer at one stage.
But from day one, we have heard, and this is why it got capped off at 7 years, right? You didn't even want people getting too close to the line. And it was it was stated very clearly. And I'm pretty sure that this is I'm going to look it up in a minute. I'm sure that this was somewhere in that sort of same British Nationality Act, those sort of things, that if the person stays in the Cayman Islands 10 years or more, they must be given right for tenure. And there even became an argument as to whether 1 year break and stay was enough to satisfy things legally. All right? And so now we've creeped it from 7, it's gone to 9, and now we're going to 10. So really, I would love to hear, I'm going to have to get Mr. Joseph's back, or somebody's going to have to come back here, because I really want to hear, and maybe Mr. Samamik should be able to chime in on this as well, if he can go search the relevant legislation. But it has to be, as far as I recall, Mr. Harris, almost finished, is that if you let them stay for 10 years or more, they get right of 10 years. So I'm interested to hear some more data on that.
Well, I was just going to make the observation, Ellio, and you certainly, I love listening to you talk because you teach me stuff all the time, and you have an uncanny ability to take these glittering generalities and make some sense out of it. So, hey, I love hearing you talk. But when we talk about the question, you make an excellent observation, and again, your memory and your recall is just really a marvel because I can barely remember what I did yesterday. And you're talking about what we did back in 2006. So that's impressive stuff. But you're absolutely right. And yes, you are 100% accurate in terms of our understanding of how these conversations evolved and how we ended up with what was originally 7-year rollover policy to begin with, which respective administrations or the lobby groups, the labor lobby groups, the businesses and big businesses and those with money in the country certainly led us down a road of more and more work permits, not less and less work permits, more and more permanent residents, not less and less of permanent residents. And I think it was Nick Joseph who, again, I keep coming back to him, but in 2024, he wrote a Viewpoint editorial with, I think, the fantastically titled Feeding the Addiction. And I think this increasing of the term limits from 9 to 10 years is a good way of saying this is once again another example of how we continue to feed our addiction for foreign employees, frankly, and, for foreign direct investment, which leads to more permanent residents, more status holders, feeding the addiction. It may also be arguably where, you had some employers saying, well, the immigration reform, not quite sure what we're trying to achieve. Are we taking a hardline approach to the foreign worker, not recognizing the distinct contributions they have made historically to developing the Cayman economy, which I hope nobody's really arguing about. But maybe this is a carrot and stick approach. We know we're going to rename the law. We know we're going to make it harder to get status, not easier. We know we're going to require you to, take a leave of absence for more than a year. We know that we're going to say you can't job hop. But, as a balance, we're going to let you stay instead of 9 years, 10 years, where, to your point, you can then establish tenure and never really leave anyway. So just trust us. We're with the government. We're here to help. So you're absolutely right. That one proposal certainly should draw some significant attention and, to your point also, some further clarification, if not explanation, from the government in terms of why this and what are you trying to achieve, and do you recognize the threats that obtain?
Yeah, I mean, and again, Mr. Nick Joseph, to your point, he touched on this as well when we have people staying in the country. And I can recall either being elected or being a civil servant. And I know there was one gentleman, I'll never forget it. We were chatting and he said, I've been here for 20 years and I'm still on permit. I'm like, are you serious? And this was the time with outbreaks, right?
Right.
And you kind of grew up knowing these people. My God, I thought you were here. I thought you were Caymanian. You've been here forever and a day. But I just recall it being the sort of international norm that it was accepted that, 10 years was one of those situations where you draw the line in the sand. If you let the person stay there 10 years, that's pretty much where he ended up. So, yeah, I'd love to be able to hear somebody with the legal mind now give us some new information, because that's definitely what I recall, very clearly being thrown around at the time for the implementation of the rollover. Now, that's it. I want to mention as an aside that I think the rollover does cause some challenges, right? Because one has to ask himself, if you get a person here that is a good individual and a good fit, and you don't always find that, a good fit for the country, do you want to make it that at the end of the day now, that person that's been here for 7 years has to leave? Do you want that? And then at the end of the day, you have to turn over and possibly get someone that isn't going to be that good for the country, for the want of a better expression. These are some of the challenges. So from a rollover perspective, in terms of just stopping people from getting PR, I think we can probably agree that there's some level of working, although from the level of grants with the permanent residency, that becomes a suspect question as well. But I remember that particular discussion taking place where people were losing good workers, particularly when we first started implementing it. People were losing good workers because of the fact that this person had to leave after 7 years. And another argument that I think people should consider is when you create a situation where a person knows they only have a very limited period of time, what sort of personalities do you get? Do you end up getting a different animal, for the want of a better expression? Do you end up with a situation where the person comes here and they're more for the grab because chances are I'm not going to be staying here, so you just come with a let me see what I can get for myself attitude? Or again, you would end up with something slightly different if the person could come here knowing, very well knowing, that if they do all the right things, they get to stay here and sort of take a totally different attitude towards the country. Because I definitely believe that what is positive for the country is for us to be able to have people that genuinely come here, love the people, love the country, love the culture, and want to be able to contribute to that. And again, what's the fix for that? I have no idea. But just throwing that out as a matter of concern in terms of what are we getting from the rollover and is it working? Those are all discussions that we should have. My colleague raised this issue earlier about some of the things that he was doing in office, and it just highlighted again another reason why we need to look back at COVID, for example, in terms of what we learned. One of the things you throw at Austin, and I think you might have done this off air, so let me bring it on air, is we have issues with fixing the roads.
Yep.
I think you mentioned that was a missed opportunity. Like, why didn't we do a lot of this road fixing when you had COVID, when there was nobody arguably on the roads?
It was an opportunity.
Yeah, so, and I think that we need these sort of think tanks, and I don't think we have enough of them. I probably don't have any, period. But I've said Hurricane Ivan, you look at COVID, and again, even in things in terms of rollover. So to Simamba's point, where is the proper analysis, for example, even on the rollover policy? I mean, really going out, conducting the right research and the surveys and everything, and actually finding out what you're getting for the country from the rollover.
Yes.
Because now we're moving to 10 years, but show me where are the studies? I mean, I don't want to bring back up the peers, but we reject stuff again, like I said, without any consideration. So why are we accepting the rollover then? Why are you accepting that? You know why? Because it probably just appeals to everyone from a national immigration perspective. Yeah, send them home. And it somehow makes you feel better. But the question is, what's working and what is not working? Because I can tell you right now, I definitely see a lot of permanent residents that's being approved. So just something for us to consider. I think it would be great to make sure that we've actually sending somebody out, getting a group that's going to go out and properly analyze it and actually see what we're getting as the country. One of the things I stated, Austin, when you stepped out, while you were out, remember those little pink slips?
Yes, sir.
While you were out, I stated that, I remember the early discussions when rollover was implemented. And one of the things that was being said is, hey, but I got a good worker here. And you've got to get rid of this person.
Yeah, no, I heard.
And what do you get in return?
Right.
And at the same time, if somebody tells you, you're going to only have a chance to be there for 5 years or 7 years, do you not get a little bit of a rapacious individual, that comes and I just want to grab and take whatever I can take? What are the things, the pros and the cons, the benefits, the advantages, the disadvantages that we have achieved as a country, from the rollover? Again, just something else I think that it would be good to get a proper think tank about and conduct the relevant work. Because it's one thing to say I'm well-intended, but as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I note that as a country, if we say certain things that makes it sound like, we're going to send foreigners home, or get rid of that guard guy, whatever. Anything, certain little things just makes it, yes, I love it. Right. Let's go for that. That'll work. But it doesn't mean, despite the fact that it might excite you, doesn't mean that it's actually working and you're getting what you really wanted to achieve. Another thing, the issue, I think Mr. Joseph mentioned that as well. Like, if you, or at least perhaps alluded to it, has anyone looked, for example, at the requirements, for example, in terms of getting PR and saying, well, this PR requirements, where is it weighted? Who are you chances are, who are you trying to get in the country based on how you pose the questions? Because let's just be honest, that's what is going to happen. If I put a requirement, it says you have to have $1.2 million, then clearly I'm trying to get a certain category of persons. Same thing in relation to pretty much all those questions. There's some fundamental ones like 4 burners on a stove that everybody has to have. But there's some specifics now that you're going to get because you're trying to pull certain people. And I just don't think that in this country we do enough of those calculations. I've seen the same thing even in relation to scholarships. It's government simply saying, we've got 10 scholarships, just throw a number out. We've got 10 scholarships and kind of almost a first come, first served basis. But to your point, for example, in terms of workforce development, why isn't it a case of saying, but hold on. We need lawyers and we need some engineers and we need this. So why don't we give 3 towards legal studies?
Right.
Yeah, I know you're applying for the farming, but we really need legal right now. Where is that? As opposed to just going ahead straight, got good grades, first come, first served basis, here you go.
Right.
So as a country, I think we just need a little bit more of that. That's my good ramble for the day, Mr. Harris, on that.
Absolutely. And
point.
again, that is another example of where having that, source, in this case, we call it a workforce database, so you can measure and show what the skill sets are of your Caymanians compared to the skill sets and number of expatriate workers, and try to social engineer, for lack of a better word, where these jobs should go, how we can plan a bit better for the future. All of that is a direct result from doing it right the first time. So,
well, we can have a million discussions because even as you talk about that, Mr. Harris, and I think you've had a little spate in HR as well.
Yeah.
Caymanians are often given a disadvantage. I've talked about banking.